Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to Kottabos Space Program, where today we are having a look at yet another wonderful mod, this time in the form of Kerbal Alarm Clock, which is being made by user Trigger AU. And what this glorious little piece of work looks to add into the game is, well, an alarm clock to help you remember all those important moments in this game. And I love this mod. In fact, due to my horrible short-term memory, I basically consider this an essential mod to have in the game. So essential, I could have sworn I made a video about this already ages ago, but I didn't. There's that wonderful memory in play, and so, well, here we are finally to show this thing off, and it is beautiful. As basically what it allows you to do is to set different triggerable events for your different spacecraft as to where they might be in space, how close they are to things, just time-based trigger events, and all sorts of other things to remind you when certain objectives need to occur, because it's inevitable in this game when you play for long enough that you're going to have a lot of ships out there in space, and you may even attempt to do multiple missions at the same exact time, and that all means that you need to keep track of a lot of stuff. Things like where certain spacecraft are at certain moments, when a maneuver node needs to occur on another spacecraft, etc., etc., and it's kind of finicky to remember all those things yourself, so in comes the Kerbal Alarm Clock to remember it for you, warn you about the event in question, and when it does, it'll pause the game or even stop time warping if you are warping at that moment, and will even give you the option to jump to the specific craft in question so that you can do that specific task and then head back to your other ship. It is a wonderful tool that is just so great, and thankfully quite easy to use, as pretty much in every view in the game, whether it's the Space Center, the tracking station, the VAB, the spaceplane hangar, or of course when you're playing out there in the world, you will find in the toolbar this little button right here. That of course looks like an old-fashioned alarm clock. You click that, and there you are, you're brought into the Kerbal Alarm Clock interface, and again, this is viewable at anywhere that crafts are involved. So whether the spaceplane hangar, the VAB tracking station here in the Space Center, the map, anywhere you want, well, except for these two buildings of, well, three buildings, I guess. These three here are the only ones where you can't find it. And it will show you a variety of different tasks that it's currently remembering to then warn you about later. Now let's actually go into the tracking station and look at it in there, as it's a bit easier to see it. And what we have here in the interface is a pretty simple list. As you can see, we have the lovely box, we have the list of all the events that it's currently remembering for us. Then on the top we have a couple of buttons. The first one is this little rocket ship guy here. What this does is it filters the list to the current vessel. Now it is a completely useless button in this view. Even if you select, say, the Orbiter 1A, which I do have an alarm for in here, if we click this, it won't filter. It only filters if you're currently actually flying that ship. And when you hit this, it'll only show its active timers. Now, we then also have a minimize button, which basically makes this a little bit smaller and a bit more streamlined, so whatever basically is the next one in line to warn you about, it will show that and that alone. Any of the ones like these grayed out have already occurred, and we're way past time, plus 10 minutes in that one, plus 14 in that one, and of course any that are beyond the next in line won't be shown in the minimized view. The next thing we have is the settings, and holy crap, we have a lot of settings. Let's just go through these kind of quick here. In the general, you can change, say, the styling of this box. Like if you don't want a KSP style, you can go Unity style or a combination of the two. Personally, KSP style, way to go. We also have the button that we do have down here. You can either have it as the standard app launcher button in-game, a basic button, or if you prefer the Blizzy toolbar, you can actually switch it over to that as well. Me, I prefer it in the launcher bar down here. We also then have a show child window below, which this is the child window, and if we click this, it goes down here. If we unclick it, it goes to the side. I prefer it on the side. We then have preferences here of max alarms to show before scroll list. So if we have 10 alarms in here, after that, it will show a scroll list. We can hide the alarm clock when game is paused, show tooltips on mouse hover, halt time warp when throttle is cut off manually, which is actually quite a nice feature. I like that. What the time format is that you want to go with. Confirm before deleting an alarm. Like right now, if I went to delete this, it would just straight up delete. If we click this, it would ask me if I'm sure. Allow us to jump to different ships in the Space Center or tracking station. Yes, leave that on, it's useful. Same thing if you're jumping to an asteroid, leave it on, it's good. We also then have the backup system, which does need a little bit of explaining. I love this feature because it does give you, let's say if I actually click to this ship right here, if we actually turn off the settings and click this one, we have the ability to jump immediately to the ship in question for this alarm. And well, thing is though, it can potentially get a little bit wonky. If you're jumping back and forth between a lot of different ships doing things, there's the potential that something could happen to the game. And so what it does is it will save a backup save file every time you jump to a different ship. And we can have up to a huge number of saves, so 50 different backup saves for it to keep. Now, by default, it's at 20, which I think is more than enough, but if you're really paranoid about your save files, you can go all the way up to 50 backup saves every time you jump. It's a very cool feature. I like it quite a lot, and we can cancel the jump if a backup fails. I turn that off because sometimes a backup might not save, but we're still perfectly fine, so I'm just good to go. We then have a time warp and math checks, and this is just how many times per second it checks the math on these things. And, well, that's always a good thing to have. We then have in the specifics, this is some of the stuff with the formatting. So basically any alarm we collect, or not collect, but create, we can set default actions and the position of where the alarm will pop up. So right now, if an alarm goes off, in the center of the screen, a little window will pop up. A default action is that once an alarm does pop up, it'll kill your warp. Another default action is to pause instead, right here, or do nothing. And also, as for the message box that comes up, we can have a message box, don't have a message box, or only have a message box if it's not your active vessel. We can also choose by default to play a sound, and by default to automatically delete the alarm when done. Now, these two alarms right here, as I mentioned earlier, they are alarms that already happened, and I chose for them not to be deleted, so that we can see that this particular ship is actually 18 minutes past its apoapsis, and so I find that still quite useful. So I chose not to delete it, and well, Jebediah Kerman's just always a good Kerbal to be able to quickly switch over to, and that's a good thing. Now, in the specifics here, we can actually set specific defaults for specific kinds of alarms. So if it's a maneuver node alarm, you can change what all these defaults are. If it's a contract alarm, warp 2 alarm, any of these, you can change the defaults for specific categories, which is useful. In audio, now we have an alarm that plays, which we have a lovely selection of different alarms, including a rooster, and we can play those different sounds by testing them here. This is my favorite alarm, Notify 2, but of course if you want the rooster, it does make me laugh. But yes, this is so you can set the alarms that you want to go off. And again, just like within the specifics, you can set here in audio specific kinds of alarms for specific events. So maneuver nodes could have one alarm, distance could have another alarm, etc., etc. Now, visibility is the next one. So that's in the minimal mode. Like I said, it's currently showing the next alarm, or we could have it selected the oldest alarm. Another very useful thing for all these flight mode, Space Center, tracking station, and editor is we have an option to prevent click-through over window, which is very, very useful, because sometimes you know that one menu might pop over another menu, and there might be like a button right here on a menu behind this, and if we clicked here, it would actually click the button still. but with this option selected, it can prevent that from happening, which is a good thing. And that is basically the most useful thing here. The others are about positioning, if it's visible, etc. Good things to have, but meh, I kind of roll with it. The calendar is if you want it to be stock Kerbal calendar or a real-world calendar, and you can select this right here to toggle that view on or off. So we can actually toggle this. Right now we're year 1, day 1, 45 minutes in, or I could toggle it with this button to turn it to the 1st of January 1951, 46 minutes in now, or go back. And of course, finally, is our about that just tells us about all the versions, etc. Okay, so now that we have that, it's on to actually adding a new alarm. Now we have two options of doing this. We have this button to just add an alarm that we custom make, but we can also do a quick add, and if we click this, we can select just a quick action of an alarm like the next apoapsis alarm, periapsis alarm, raw time alarm, or an Earth alarm, which would be an hour in real world time that it'll do an event. And so that is just the basic quick adds, and if you're on a specific craft, it will basically do that alarm for that craft, or of course these ones are raw time. This raw alarm is in-game time, so 10 minutes in-game. Earth alarm is time in the real world. So an hour, of course, here goes by in the game a lot faster than an hour in the real world. And so that's what you can do there. Now, if we add, well, then we have a lot more options. Now, what we're actually going to do for this is select one of our craft to go to, because it's a lot better to show it with an actual craft involved. So let's just cancel out of that, and what the heck, we'll go to the Orbiter 1A, and that'll be perfectly handy for doing that. And of course, we have our alarm button here again. We can click and go to here. And for this ship, we actually already do have one alarm, which, oh yes, it's passed. So it's for Jebediah, who's sitting here, but it's passed, so it won't show in the alarm list because it's no longer active, which let's go ahead and actually just delete that alarm. We'll remake it here momentarily. And that, of course, is what this button does here. It deletes the alarm. I probably should have mentioned that. So let's add in here. We have different options. So we have a time alarm, which again is raw time in the game world. So a specific amount of time that will pass. And say, for instance, we wanted it to pause time. Actually, no, let's just go with kill warp, because pause time is a bit overkill. It'll pop up my message, it'll play a sound, and we'll set it, just to show it off, for 5 seconds from when we create it, and it will repeat itself, because we can make repeating alarms, and we'll have it repeat 10 seconds afterwards. So let's create this alarm, just to show off how it works, and also show when an alarm does pop, what happens. So let's add it, and in 3, 2, 1, there we go. We have the alarm, and now we can choose to delete this alarm on close, because the other one's already triggering. It's 3 seconds away, so let's delete the old one. And there we go. There's the repeat, and we can delete that real quick, and I'm just going to quickly delete this before it goes off, and you can keep having those sorts of things going. It's quite useful for just time-based stuff, and it's nice that you can do a repeat. Now, the maneuver node, which is our next option, is a bit fancier, because of course you're actually wanting to do a maneuver node. So what we're probably going to want to be is in the map view, and if, say, we wanted a maneuver node right here, we'll add a maneuver, just a random thing, boop, excellent, it's good. It now knows that this maneuver node that we created is the next one we want to do. And, well, we want to have a little bit of a margin for it to remind us about, so 1 minute before we hit this maneuver node, it will warn us that it's coming up. And what's cool about that is when it warns us, it also gives us the option, if we're no longer on this craft, to jump to another craft. And that's very useful, because a minute beforehand, it gives you plenty of time to jump over to that craft, do the maneuver node, and then go away and do your thing. It's wonderful. And if we actually click on this other ship that I have here, this is a maneuver node that I already have set, and as you can see, we have two options. If the alarm came up for this, it would just have us jump to the ship and it would be good. But since we're before the maneuver node, we can either jump to the ship and it'll forget about the maneuver node, or we can jump to the ship and restore the maneuver node. So if we click that, it's automatically going to take us here to this little probe, and if we go back to the map, there's the maneuver node in question, which of course is 12 minutes away. And so it's loaded it up and we can edit it as need be, etc., and we'll be good to go. And so that's how that works. So when the timer comes up on it, it would basically do the same thing. We'd jump into it, we'd have the node, and we'd be good to fly. Now the next one we have is an apoapsis periapsis one, and this basically, again, it'll warn you within a minute's time or whatever you tell it to do before you reach the apoapsis or the periapsis of your ship, and then the alarm will come on when you're near that, and you can have it repeat every time it's triggered. So if I don't click this, it'll just happen once. If I click this, it'll keep happening over and over anytime it hits the periapsis, which is quite useful if you're trying to, like, rendezvous with something. You'll know, okay, it's at its apoapsis right now, I need to launch and get to this place. So that's useful. We then have the ascending and descending nodes, which is like the apoapsis periapsis, but of course if you're trying to adjust the angle of your orbit, and so when you'll know when you're near one of those nodes, and again you can choose when it warns you. Always good to have. Now the next is closest target distance, which will create an alarm on the closest approach of this vessel to a targeted vessel. And you can either select it as the closest approach, or, well, actually we need to set a target, don't we, for this to make it actually visible. We'll set that one as a target. So right now, closest rendezvous, it'll show us within a certain number of orbits. So we can adjust this, and within 6 or 8 orbits, our closest rendezvous in 3 orbits will be 41 kilometers. And we can adjust that to check for other different rendezvous here, and it's very useful to have, so we can know when exactly the closest we will be to this ship, so we can then try and rendezvous. But we can also get target distance, and this is a little bit different, so we can select when we're within a specific distance, and again search by the different orbits, or we can switch it off of the main target and select our nearest sphere of influence, which of course would be Kerbin, and it'll tell us the same deal there. Now the next one we have is actually Sphere of Influence. Now basically this will set up an alarm whenever the sphere of influence changes on your craft. So that could be any time that is triggered, which I believe Sphere of Influence even triggers if you throttle the engine. So basically whenever it, gets near a planet, a moon, whatever it may be, it will trigger an alarm once it changes a different sphere of influence. So it's good to have, especially if you have a mission going way out and maybe you need to know when you're by a specific planet so you can do a specific burn. Good to remember. The next alarm we can add is a transfer window, and this is actually quite interesting because this one, what it does is we can select from our ship where we can actually go to in a single burn, and it'll calculate how long we'll have to wait until that transfer. So like right now, if we wanted to go to Moho, in 8 days time, we could do a burn at this angle, and it will get us to Moho. And so we can select this, and it'll create a alarm for when we're near that transfer. Then you can go away, do another mission, while this satellite stays in orbit around Kerbin, waiting for that just right transfer to Moho for the right conditions. And as you can see, I already have that set there, and it's just waiting. It's waiting for 8 days, 3 hours from now to actually go and do that specific mission. And I like that. It's a good little thing there. Now the crew one, oh boy, we're actually gonna have to go back to oh boy, which one was this one? Oh well, we're actually close enough so we can switch the craft from here. We need to go to a craft, of course, that has some crew. And so the next one is a crew reminder, and this one is very similar to the time reminder. It's just that you select a specific crew member when you want it to remind you about them, and so that you know when the alarm pops up that you need to go to where that crew member is. Now they could be in a ship, they could be on the surface, they could be in a space station, whatever it may be. It will just remind you, oh hey, you need Jebediah to do something in 10 minutes time, so remind you. And that that is a wonderful thing. And the final one we have is contract. So if you are in a career mode, I unfortunately am not, so you would select a contract from in here and basically set various reminders for that, again within a specific margin of time. And it's very good, very useful. I love all these reminders. It's a huge variety of different things you can set, which just make the game so much easier because you don't have to remember these things now. I know that in 7 minutes time, I can jump over to this specific probe and I will be good to go for this maneuver node right here. Or of course, we can remember about the apoapsis of this ion probe over here, jump to that ship, and we know that in 7 minutes it'll be at its apoapsis. Or for the other probe, know that in 8 days it'll be in just the right spot for a MOHO transfer. All these things are useful tools, and again, it doesn't matter where you are in the game, it will remember all of those. So whether you're here in the Space Center, in the tracking station, or even in the vehicle assembly building. Now, time is of course paused in here, but it's still useful because you may be thinking, oh well, it's 7 minutes until this probe is at its apoapsis, and I know that it's on this specific, degrees of an orbit, so I can launch my craft here that I'm building in 2 minutes time and we can rendezvous. And so you can plan out your missions like that, and it's very, very useful tool. In my mind, an absolute necessity for this game because it's just it just makes life so much easier. And if you would like to check out this mod for yourself, which I definitely would say to do, you can take a look at the link in the description as always. And I actually should probably mention this. I almost forgot about this. I'm glad I clicked that in the ad in here because of course we don't have crew yet. We don't have an apoapsis yet. We can only do time or transfer windows or contracts. So you can only do one of these 3 in here, which is nice because it's not showing all the others because they're kind of useless for your current ship. And that's just good to have in here, those different abilities, and it's just a useful mod. So check it out if you want. Well, you know what, honestly, just check it out. You will love it and you will thank me. But yes, that is going to be it for this episode. I know it wasn't exactly the most exciting one today, no weird random parts, but a feature that frankly I wish was in stock because it's just so darn useful. But that is going to be it for today. I hope you all have enjoyed, and of course that you do come back for the next episode. But until that time, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good one.